You know, when we're going through something, we call it, we're in the trenches. We're in the fucking trenches here, whether it's got to do with money, whether it's got to do how we're feeling about ourselves. We're like, bro, I'm in the trench, and we know exactly what that means. And so what I realized is, you know, sometimes when we say we're in the trench doing the mahi, whether it's, you know, trying to get money, whether it's trying to create something, to me in my mind, I thought the trench was going in a straight line. I was moving forward every time I was in that trench. But without reflection, who's to say that you're not going around in a circle in that trench? You know, so sometimes you got to put your head up from working to really look around where you're at, to really come back to the space. All right, I'm going in the right direction. And sometimes it does take that space of, actually, you know what? Just put down the tools, put down the jackhammer, put down whatever it is that you're using to sort of move yourself forward to dig this trench, and just appreciate.
Welcome back to the Open Up Podcast, and to episode 117 with my man, Raniera Rewiri, bro, aka Plant-Based Māori, and the host of Planty Seeds Podcast, which is going gangbusters at the moment. You got a head of steam, hey?
Bro. Just on a bit of a rampage at the moment, you know, so been loving the whole space, because similar to you, you know, while you're in this podcast space, it's just a privilege to be able to connect, to dive into people's stories, to learn, to grow. And for me, it's just all about that connection, and to be able to have that exchange with that person. I'm taking so much out of it, but I think the beauty out of podcasting is so many other people are able to take something away from that one conversation, because there's been so many stages throughout my life where I've just had these profound conversations with amazing people, bro, that people don't even know. People wouldn't even know who they are, but I've been able to extract so much lessons that's really helped shape the way that I think, the way that I start to feel about myself. And, you know, it was those conversations that really gave me the right advice to do the appropriate action. And I think that's what sort of opened up my worldview and, you know, what my capabilities are as a human being for the journey that I'm on. So, you know, like we just keep coming to, bro, I'm just on a rampage at the moment with all the time that we have, and knowing that we got Zoom, knowing that we got the internet, that people understand that, because, you know, being in person is way better because of the connection, but people just understand that can't happen. So being able to be online, you know, people are just accepting the quality of it anyway. So, you know, for me, I'm just like, let's go. This is the zone, man.
Bro, like, some of the people you've interviewed have some like awesome perspective on life and adversity and challenges in general. For me, I found that it's been an unintentional form of like therapy and mentorship. Has it been the same sort of thing for you?
100%, you know, 100%. When you're able to hear the truth, I think that's the main thing. You know, that's what we're all sort of in search for, is the truth. And being able to, anyone can fabricate something, anyone can talk about, I'm this man, you know, I've achieved this, but no one really wants to talk about the yuckiness. No one really wants to engage in that trauma, in that pain, in that healing. Whereas for me, there's a commonality between each and every person, and that's, we've all gone through shit, you know, and it's being able to understand, and the people who are open to go into that space are so aware that they would go through it again and again and again, because it's helped them become the person that they are. And I heard something from James Altucher, and he said, the seeds of success are sown in each and every adversity that we go through. So for me, that's like what I'm about, and I can just tell that's the space that you're in as well, bro.
That's awesome, man. How did you learn how to speak? Was it through podcasting? Because you flow really well, you're really articulate, and, you know, from being back home, that isn't expected from Māoris.
Yeah, I think for myself, when I was working in the mines, there was a stage where I wasn't listening to any music. I was just listening to these like 5-minute motivational talks, from YouTube, and I was going on YouTube to MP3 converter, bro, and I was just looping that shit over and over and over again. So being able to combine different words definitely came from that, because we are able to really soak something in when we're able to attach an emotion to a word, to an experience. And that's how I think I was able to sort of come to this way of being. But, the more that I'm talking, the more public speaking I do. And I had a gangster mentor, bro. Like, incredible mentor. I came home from traveling around Southeast Asia and Europe, and bro, I was like, I'm gonna work with young people. And I remember when I was working in the mines, I was trying to find a side hustle or an escape to get out of that hustle and bustle of things. And I remember I'd done this test, bro. It was an online test, and all you needed to do was A, B, C, or D. And I failed it. I couldn't even get it right. And so my dreams of being a youth worker was, oh man, I'm so dumb. I can't even do this. And then I went on this rampage of a mean as time traveling. And when you're feeling so good, there's this thing in you that you just feel like a superhero. You feel like you can do, if you can imagine, bro, every single day for 6 months, you're just happy as fuck. Like you're in a different country, you're meeting new people, you're having bintangs on the beach, you're, just having all these incredible experiences. And so for me, that's when I was like, you know what, I failed that test, but I know I want to be a youth worker. I know I want to go and work with young people. And I came back to New Zealand, and bro, I just went into the council here in Whakatane, which is a small town in New Zealand. And I went and talked to the CEO, and I just laid out my dreams. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to share my story with young people, and I just want to work alongside them and support them. And what happened is that the CEO of the council, he put me on to someone by the name of Marcus Akuhata Brown. And this man is what they would call an anonymy. He is someone who loves no one knowing about him. Right, if you know him, you know him. And for me, I gave him the same spiel that I gave to the CEO. And bro, he's like, oh, you wanna work with young people? Oh, you wanna public speak? And it was in a way where he was challenging me, because we have those ideas, like, oh, I wanna become successful, I want to have my own business, I want to be in this loving relationship. But anyone can think about those things. But when the challenge is laid out and you're actually going through it, that's when you're really like, do I really want to fucking do this? Because it's super challenging. And I was his tail, bro. I was so fortunate to be his tail for a solid year. He'll take me on speaking trips right around New Zealand. He even took me over to Australia with him. We were going around to different schools speaking. And he's the one person that I can't speak good in front of, because him to me, he's like the one. He is Mr. Miyagi. He is the sensei. He is my master in terms of being his student, of trying to articulate myself in terms of instilling influence, storytelling. But every time he's in the room, I crumble, and when you're around that person and you're trying to speak, but you can't, for me, I was able to grow, because when he wasn't in the room, I was just boom, I was on fire, because I've seen the example. I know how to hold space. I've seen him hold room, capture attention, use these words in really awesome ways. So for me, every single time I've heard his talk, like heaps, I'd say between 20 to 40 times. Each and every time it was like the first time I heard it. And it was beautiful, bro. So I put a whole lot of how I articulate myself, how I speak, to motivational talks, but mainly down to that one man.
Yeah, no wonder I think you said you attached an emotion or energy to an experience, and if that's how he made you feel every time, like it was the first time hearing his story, or his talk, then I can understand why you feel that way and how why you articulate yourself that way. So that's pretty cool, man.
Bro, and I'll tell you a story. I'll actually tell you a story. There was this one time, like I said, he took me over to Australia with him. And bro, we were going into different schools, high schools, and he would give me 10 minutes every time before his talk, before his keynote. And all I needed to do was introduce myself, introduce him. And we were to do like 8 talks, I think, throughout the whole week we were there. And every single time, bro, I would get up. Oh, just so embarrassing, bro. He would like give me signs to shut up, those sort of things. And I'm just like, oh, trying to perform and trying to do my best. And it got to this one particular talk. It was the second to last talk, and it was in an auditorium. There were like kids everywhere. And I got up and I shared this. I tried to capture the room, but there were just heaps of these kids just talking in their little groups. And I froze. I froze for like 5-10 minutes. Nothing come out. I was just frozen, and it was the first time I felt so insecure, felt so small, felt like, what the fuck am I even up to? Am I meant to be doing this? And my major influence is sitting right there. He's observing all of this. And so I had my tail between my legs, but this one thought came to me. It was, I'm not sitting down without these people knowing who I really am. So I just busted out this haka, bro. I just busted out a gangster haka, and I was like, fuck, this is me. They didn't know where the hell it came from. And I just sat down and I was just quiet the whole entire time. And there was one more talk, and I was quiet, bro. He was trying to talk to me, my mentor, and I was just, I couldn't say anything because I was just so down on myself that happened. And he was asking if I wanted to speak at the last one, and I just kept saying no. And anyway, 2 minutes before the last talk, I got up and I was like, oh, I'll get up and I'll say something. Because what was going through my mind at the time was, if I don't get up and overcome this right now in the moment, am I going to have the confidence to be able to speak again? Am I going to have, that drive to want to be able to stand in this space, to share stories, to share my story, if I can't overcome this? And so I got up, and it was the best talk that I had ever done, because the number one thing that came out of there was I spoke to the moment. I spoke my truth of what had just happened 1 hour ago, and boom, relatability. And what I came to realize was I was trying to project this person that I really wasn't in these previous other engagements. Whereas this time I showed up as myself. Because I had nothing to lose. I was already down and out, but I had one more opportunity to be able to share who I am and why I wanted to be in that space. And honestly, bro, it felt amazing. And when we left that space, bro, he was just cracking up at me, and I was laughing, but it just completely just settled everything. And even to this day, when we catch up, I always bring it up, and yeah, we just have a good laugh about it now. So yeah, that's the story, bro. And I think that's where my confidence now comes from, because I know what it's like to crumble in that sort of space where people are waiting to hear from you, people are waiting to hear what you have to say. And I know what it feels like to have nothing to say. So I just speak from a real raw place now. So the major lesson, bro, adversity.
That's epic, man. And I know, like, there was something that came out a few years ago about one of the top fears in the USA, and most developed is public speaking. And I think for most people, that's because we feel unworthy of being seen and heard. And for people to, I guess, feel a certain way about public speaking, to fear it, and then to have that moment where you freeze for that long, where does that self-awareness come from to say, hey, if I don't go and speak right now, will I ever speak again? Because I can't imagine many people having that awareness.
Yeah, I think for me it was the whole situation. It was the circumstance. It was who I was with. It was reflecting on the whole week. It was, all of these things that it all happened in the space of an hour. Where, bro, I have this thing about myself where I know how to carry myself pretty well. I know how to impress people. I know how to show up for someone, because if Matua, if my mentor got up there by himself, I would have felt like I had failed him as well as myself. And I didn't want that hanging over me as well because of everything that he has laid out for me. And this was my opportunity that came up where he said, "Oh, so you want to be a public speaker?" And this is when we first connected. And this was the time where I could answer. It wasn't just words anymore. It wasn't just like, yeah, I do want to speak. This was the time where it was like, actually, I do want to speak. And it was that lived experience of not saying anything that made me realize that words aren't the aren't everything. It's actually how you embody those words, how you allow that energy of the words to sort of shape you into taking that step, into showing up, into not giving up, into just, being the person that you say you want to become. And it all comes down to integrity.
That's awesome, man. That's epic. How did you after, I guess, that time away and that 6 months of just being happy every day, come back and then have the confidence or the belief in yourself to go into the CEO of the council and to say, this is my dream?
Yeah, I think for me that came down to that. Just I overheard something because that year, 2017, me and my best mate went to go to Tony Robbins' Stay with Destiny, his 5-day seminar, and I had heard that the CEO sends one of his employees to the Date with Destiny seminar every year or every 2 years. And so that was my link because I had been through it. I know he sends someone. That's how I made the connection. I didn't just say, I want to come in and share it. I was like, oh, I've been to the Date with Destiny seminar and this is what I got out of it and this is where I want to come. So it was boom, it was just a straight connection and he was open to it because I had already done something that he's inspired by. So that's how that came about. But what it led to was just, bro, I don't know if you've experienced, just that feeling of joy. And, I was pissed probably the whole entire time of that trip. But even when you're drunk, even when you're, have, some drugs or whatever it is in your system, you just feel so joyful. And, bro, I was just, me and one of my best mates, bro, we were just having these awesome conversations. Every time we'd drink, we were dreaming and they felt so real, bro. It felt so real. Like, I can do that. Yeah, that's us, And it was just having those consistently, it just filled this belief, it just awakened the side of me that had been sleeping. And it wasn't that I had no belief, but there was something way more there was like a burning desire. It just turned from belief to a burning desire to really try and create something for myself. And it's still been a process, to this day. So yeah, bro, that's where it sort of like came from. Just gratitude, being happy, traveling, and it was just something just clicked, at the right time.
Well, I really do feel like you've created something for yourself, like now, the space you're in now and what you're doing now. Are you proud of what you've achieved so far? Because I know you're helping a lot of people, man.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think when you're in the space of growth, of service, it's quite challenging sometimes to reflect because you're constantly looking forward, you're constantly trying to grow, you're constantly trying to progress. And there was this thought that came to mind when me and my best mate Te Haunui Tuna were having a conversation one time. And we talk like we're in the trenches, when we're going through something, we call it we're in the trenches. We're in the fucking trenches here, whether it's got to do with money, whether it's got to do how we're feeling about ourselves. We're like, bro, I'm in the trench, and we know exactly what that means. And so what I realized is, sometimes when we say we're in the trench doing the mahi, whether it's, trying to get money, whether it's trying to create something, to me in my mind, I thought the trench was going in a straight line. I was moving forward every time I was in that trench. But without reflection, who's to say that you're not going around in a circle in that trench? So sometimes you got to put your head up from working to really look around where you're at, to really come back to the space. All right, I'm going in the right direction. And sometimes it does take that space of, actually, you know what? Just put down the tools, put down the jackhammer, put down whatever it is that you're using to sort of move yourself forward to dig this trench, and just appreciate. And I won't lie, bro, I don't do that enough. I don't do that enough to sort of, take that time to be proud of myself, because sometimes it's really difficult to be proud of yourself when you're seeking someone else to be proud of you. You're seeking validation. You're seeking the praise from a certain person. You're seeking love from this certain person. So sometimes when you're in that space, being proud of yourself is just not enough. But at the end of the day, you'll somehow realize, and it took me a while, it took me a podcast with the bro Jordan River, and it took me a podcast with that fella to be like, fuck, all of those other things don't matter, being my dad telling me that he's proud of me, my mum telling me she's proud of me, my partner, none of that really mattered. It was, I got to this place where it was like, fuck yeah, I am proud of myself, because no one, honestly, bro, can do what I'm doing. No one can go through what I have gone through in the way that I have. And that right there just came through a meditation this morning, because I was in this meditation questioning, why people ask dumb questions, or why people are searching for the answers that they don't even know the question to. And what I was meditating on was, what's an example? What's a question that I could ask that people could get? And for me, the question was, the quality of the question matters. And sometimes it's so simple that we miss it. And for me, it was, why am I here? Why have I gone through the things that I've gone through? And this is me asking myself, but anyone can ask this question. And a download came. It was an answer that came from within, and it said, because you're the only one who can go through it. You're the only one who can go through whatever it is you're going through. And people think we need answers from a particular individual, from this person, from that person. But my most profound answers have come from me just being still and allowing the answer to rise itself. And that's where it comes from for me, is just that self-awareness is pretty a big part of my life as well, bro.
Yeah, and I feel that's a problem for most people, is keeping still, especially now we've got Zoom, we can do calls whenever we want, and especially you with the momentum that you have at the moment. Is it hard for you to stop, and do you have an issue with overworking yourself?
Yeah, that's always been something that's big for me. But over the last month, I've got a solid morning routine where it's just solely based around filling up my cup. It's based around things that are making me happy and making me feel good about myself. And it's waking up early. It's, going for a walk. It's, going into cold water. It's doing meditating. It's breath work. It's having another workout on a Zoom with, friends. I journal. Bro, this has all happened before 11 a.m., and so the rest of the day, bro, I can go on Zoom. I can have 7 hours of screen time, because that part of my day has been filled for me. And that's what sort of enables me to just sustain this energy that's sort of happening at the moment. So, yeah.
It's beautiful, bro. Thank you for sharing the routine too.
Yeah,
Slow
sweet.
drops. I think we'll segue back to what we spoke about earlier, which was like some of the challenges in regards to relationships, man. Because obviously, like you're doing the work helping young people and helping like a broader, I guess, demographic with the podcast as well. So, you happy to walk us through some of the adversity you faced for relationships?
Yeah, so relationships have always been like a major part of how I've come to build a better relationship with myself. Oh, that's where it all sort of like started from because, growing up, didn't have any kind of recognition or acknowledgement from females. I was that friend zone kind of guy, and so for
I feel
me,
you on that one.
yeah. And you go to high school and it's just a different world. You see different fish, you see different girls, you see how other young men are, and you compare yourself, and it's just a different world. You're at that stage as well where you feel aroused quite easily, so all of these different sort of emotions are sort of like going on at the time. And for me it was I just took it upon myself to change the way that I looked then, because I was on more on the chubby side. I wasn't super overweight, I was just more chubby. And I just started to run, started to watch my eating. And by my second year of high school, all of my weight had gone, and suddenly I was seen. Suddenly, I was seen, and getting messages from girls, and it got to a point where I could just be in the space, and then having girlfriends, thinking I was too good for them. Then I'd break up, and then all of these different things were happening. So for me, it just got to a real point where I was in a relationship with someone long distance, and it was a time where it just happened. She was living in Australia at the time. She came back, and we had just met, and then she moved back to Aussie, and we were just talking. We were just talking over the phone, and then I just thought in my mind that it wasn't going to amount to anything. So I went and got with another girl, and I had told her that it happened, and it just broke her. And that ended that for a time, but then she moved back to New Zealand. And I just want to say, like, my fiance is like sitting right here, but we've talked about this, so it's all good. But I just wanted to point that out. I'm not, it's not the first time she's heard it. I just want to like put that out there. But she ended up moving back, and what happened from there was the first time I had really experienced having a broken heart, because it got to a point in the relationship where things just weren't adding up. I was seeing photos of different fellas on her phone, and the connection wasn't there. And then she ended up feeling like she had feelings for someone else as opposed to me. And by that point, we were actually boyfriend and girlfriend. And bro, it just broke me. It was like, damn, I've been chosen. Someone else has been chosen over me. And, I had known, and for a long time, bro, I didn't even, for a long time, that I was playing the victim card. For a long time, I was playing the victim card. Like, man, she left me for someone else. She liked someone else. But, bro, there was only recent years, like the last year or so, I've really just acknowledged my part to play, where I was unfaithful, bro. Like, that's a fucking hard pill to swallow for any person. And so that ended up sort of being the whole reason throughout it, but I couldn't take it, so I moved to Australia. And I moved there just because what I was feeling, bro, it was yuck. It was, we've lost people in our lives, we've lost grandparents. I even lost the best mate in high school, but that kind of pain of a broken heart that no one can see. No one can see this pain. But me not being able to handle that kind of emotion that I couldn't put any language to, just I ran, bro. I ran away from it. And it happened a week after everything sort of finished, and moved over there. And it was just, all right, I'm just going to try and do me, going to just do whatever I need to do. That just turned into partying, just alcohol abuse, going through, multiple different jobs. And it got to a point where I realized, bro, I wasn't an Aussie to live that Aussie life. I was there to heal. And I had done no healing. I went through homelessness. I went through heaps of crazy stuff, bro. And it was me and two of my best mates. And fuck, we crack up about those times now. Like it's crack up when we think about those times. But that stemmed on to me. I ended up getting another partner while I was in the mines, and the same thing happened because it was long distance again. I was working in the mines, and I was away for 4 weeks. She was at home for 4 weeks, and every time that I'd come back, I'd just disrupt the routine. So no connection. She had a baby, and the dad was still involved at some capacity. And so again, it just heaps of things just started to happen around that relationship that started to trigger these emotions that I became familiar with, that yucky feeling of not being able to talk about my emotions, or the emotions that I had no language for. And heaps of things started to unfold. And what had happened was my cup ended up just becoming so empty. And the thing with emptying your cup is where people go wrong and where I went wrong is expecting someone else to fill it up.
Yep.
We can't expect other people to fill our cup up, but that's what was happening because I felt in my mind I was giving. I felt in my mind where I was at, I was giving. But when it wasn't coming back in the way that I wanted it, I felt unloved. I felt that this wasn't working. And bro, that could go both ways. And so that ended up finishing. It wasn't probably the best breakup, but what I had started to recognize was the pattern. And bro, after that breakup, that's when I went traveling. That's when I went and done my 6 months traveling, because again, running, bro, running from what was actually happening in my life. And it was in that last relationship where I got to the point where a thought of committing suicide entered my mind, where I was driving to the airport one day and all I thought about was, what if I just drive off the road here? And I wasn't thinking about my family, friends. I was just thinking about, would she even care? And that's like a real heavy thing to even ponder about. But that's where it got to for me. And so when it got to the point where we were separating and then I went traveling, that's when I started to recognize the pattern of what had started to unfold in my journey through relationships. It was me, one, taking ownership of the fucked up shit that I had done, not being the man that I could have been, not being the person of blaming, not being the person of, oh, you could have done this, or, you could have done this for me. But bro, there's so much shit that I could have taken ownership of, as well as the fact that, bro, I just came to the realization that I just got to make sure that my cup is always full, where I really understood that simple philosophy of making sure your cup is full. And so that's why when I was traveling, I was just my cup was just overflowing. It was just
With bintang.
With bintangs, with changs, with all of these, tiger, all these amazing just sort of Asian beers and everything, bro. So, that's when my whole journey of healing started, was while I was traveling, because, running away isn't the solution. And I'm at a point now where when I got back, I sort of committed to just working on myself. I committed to just becoming ultimate version of myself. And bro, as soon as and I made the transition into veganism. I was alcohol free, and it got to a point I was feeling great. I was feeling mean. I was with my mentor. I was working with young people. I was just volunteering, doing youth work. I had a main job at a surf shop here in town. I was still living with my parents, so life was mean. I had nothing sort of bad happening. But what I started to think about was, fuck, like I'm pretty rare in terms of like what girl is going to be keen on someone who doesn't drink, who's a vegan, who's very outspoken, who's working with young people, who's just doing all the service. And I started to have this doubt, and I almost gave up, bro. Almost like, oh, this is my life now, like I'm just going to enjoy it. And bro, out of nowhere, my beautiful fiance, bro, just like came into my life, and it just happened out of the blue. It was nothing that I was looking for. It was nothing that, that was pre-planned. It was the amount of work that I had done on myself was enough to be able to be ready to receive an amazing person in my life. Because I feel what most people go through when they're going through relationship or having a broken heart, they are just so like protective of their heart. They're so protective of not wanting to be hurt again. But what you have to know is that what you think you're protecting, you're also shielding yourself from the ability to feel love and to give love again. And for me, the risk of that, bro, I'll take it every day of the week. If I can go through a broken heart a few times, bro, I can keep going through them until I find the one. Because what I've learned from this whole journey is that the more we're able to really put into ourselves, things just start to happen organically. The person of my dreams was already waiting there for me, but I needed to do the work in order to receive her, to be worthy of this amazing person. And the way it happened was my sister was going to the gym. I was hard out into the gym, and I was going at it to a different gym at the time, but I went with my sister this one particular day, and my fiance worked at the gym. And I just walked in, and I was like, holy shit. It was the second time that I ever saw her, and I didn't know that she lived here in Whakatane. And I was like, damn, fuck, there she is. Shit. And I was just walked in with my sister, trying to play the cool card, didn't do the acknowledgements or anything. And just working out, took off my singlet when she would walk past. And I just got the hints that she was doing the jobs by me. She was doing the jobs by me, coming to get stuff by me. I was like,
is she agreeing to this while she's there?
Yeah, she's looking at me, she's giving me the eyes, bro. And there was this one particular point where I was training, and I looked in the mirror to look at her, and she was doing the same, looking at me, and we just locked eyes for like a split second. But I left that workout and I messaged her, and we went on our first date that evening. And we've been inseparable ever since, bro. So, that's been my whole journey of relationships. And it was necessary. It was necessary for me to go through that, Mamai. And, and I do have deep compassion for the wahine who have been in my life, for what I've put them through, and compassionate for myself too, because I know in certain spaces, situations, I wasn't a good person as well, and I know I could have been better. So, when I see my partner now, bro, she's got the absolute best version of me. She's got the absolute best version of me, bro. And, we have real deep and meaningful conversations about, so many different things. And, bro, I'm just looking forward to marrying this girl in November this year. So, yeah, bro, that's it.
The
That's
cutest,
the story, man.
That's some good brownie points you just built up over the last 10 minutes. Man, that's really good for especially men to hear. I went to an event a couple months ago, and the guy at the front goes, "Hey," and it's a room full of about 100 guys, and he's like, "Who's going through a breakup or a divorce?" And everyone put their hands up. And so that's why every guy was there. Yeah, they might have had other issues, but that was like the underlying one, that need for validation. So what I say to some of the guys that we work with and who are going through that is like, you can't be broken and go into a relationship seeking someone to heal you. Otherwise, it's just going to be two broken souls coming together, trying to fill each other's void. And so it's a good representation what you went through, that period of being alone and working on yourself until a point where you're so comfortable with yourself that you'd accepted there is potential to be alone, and then you allowed space.
It's also why you are alone. It's thinking about what makes you happy, what ticks your boxes, what do you need to do that you don't need to rely on anyone else to fill that void. And I shared a story just recently about the majority of people go throughout life with this void, and usually that void has been manifested through the lack of love from a particular person. And we can go all the way right back to the first 7 years of a life. You're always seeking certain love either from your mum or your dad, and if you don't have that love, there's always going to be a void there, and you're thinking that other people need to fill that, but really you can fill that yourself. Being able to know that the thing that this might not land for people, because I think we all need to go through our own lived experience, because what I'm saying right now, this is my experience, and I don't expect people to get everything that I'm saying, but I hope that what I am saying can somehow be relatable, maybe in the next 2 to 6 months or however long it might take for you to recognize, oh, that's what the bro was talking about. But anyway, it was, in a spiritual context, in a spiritual sense, that if we're to really think about just ourselves, our being, before we were in the womb, we were worthy of this life. We were worthy of love, because at the end of the day, we are love. Everything stems from love. So for us to actually just be in this physical sense, talking, living, you're already worthy, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be here. So it's about, if you can tap into that way of thinking, that raw truth, that essence of who you are, you can walk around with your head held high. You can walk around alone, but feel so deeply comfortable and just so in love with yourself that, bro, amazing things just happen. And like I said, if you feel you want to be with someone, just do the work on yourself until that person just arrives just magically. And there's this thing that Father Richard Raw, he's a hearty religious man, but he said the pinnacle of love is being in an intimate relationship, right? The pinnacle of love for humans is to be in an intimate relationship, is that exchange of feeling love, but the extreme privilege of being able to give it too. Right? We don't realize that just giving love makes us better, but receiving it is what we always feel like we need, but we can fill that void just by giving. So for me, bro, I'm all about relationships. I'm all about entrepreneurial sort of adventures. And those are the things that I feel just grow the capacity as individuals. Is, the best personal development course that's out there, bro, is entrepreneurial and being in a relationship. That's where you're going to just have so much things to face, and it's the hardest work ever, because it's all a reflection of how you need to be, how you need to grow, and what you need to take ownership on. So that's my whole buzz, bro.
That's amazing, man. I love that. I love that notion of before the womb, you are love, you're worthy, man. That's fucking powerful, to be honest. I got
But
a
can
couple
you
of
can you
that
can you get that
you
though, bro?
mentioned.
Like, Can you visually see that? Can you get yourself into that space of just, you know, before you even, there's something that Tony Robbins says, bro. I see, look at where I'm just getting all these things from, bro. It's Tony
Is that the
Robbins.
question about beforehand, or like who you wanted love from, who you crave love from, and who you needed to be to get it?
No, it's more so just trying to put ourselves in that space of knowing that we're worthy to be here. And it was what Tony Robbins said. He says, the heart has its own consciousness. The heart is the first thing that manifests in our makeup. You know, it's the heartbeat that sort of brings everything together. So that tells us that our heartbeat has its own intelligence, right? So when you can close your mind and you can tap into the heart, that's where you get that gut instinct, like, oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this. You get that feeling. That's that intelligence that was the first part of your consciousness, the first part of your being. So the more that we can tap into that, the more that we can actually realize and arrive at these major openings. So
I think if it didn't land before, that probably does set it up to land a little, a little more, man. That's awesome. That was that question that I asked you from Tony Robbins. That's actually what I wanted to ask you beforehand.
Oh, right.
Whose love did you crave, and who did you have to be to get it?
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, and I remember being in the Tony Robbins seminar when this came up. And for me, at that time, I was like, I craved my mother's love because I always got it. So I always wanted it. But when I'm thinking about it now, bro, I really actually wanted my dad's love because I didn't feel it. I didn't have that love. And who did I have to be to get it? Where I played rugby, he would always turn up. There was not much advice, but he was always at my games. He was always at my kapahaka. So when he was around, I felt so good because it felt like he was there. But when I didn't play as well as I could have, or if I didn't perform as well as I could have, I felt really down because deep down I felt like I disappointed him when really that wasn't the case. And I went through a major healing session last year with the bro Jesse Wynyard. And there was this one particular time, bro. I used to kiss my parents goodnight until the age of like 6 or 7. And one night I went to go and kiss my mum goodnight. And that same night I went to go and kiss my papa goodnight. And he pulled away from me. And that was my first feeling of rejection, of being super vulnerable, of, does he not love me? Those kinds of things. And what had actually happened was, my papa had a really tough upbringing as well. And he's got a real hearty lived experience. And so he was just parenting in a way that he had been parented. So, showing affection to your son at that age just wasn't sort of like a normal thing or something that he had seen. And for me at that time, that's all I could see. But what I was able to do as I tapped into that healing was I brought my view that I have now, my perspective that I have now on that one situation, right? Because everything is about perspective. It's how we perceive things. It's how we internalize information, how we internalize data, how we internalize experiences that make it sit, that it can either make it, you can understand it, or it can be traumatizing. And so for me, that was a traumatizing experience. But as I went into that space, I realized and understood that, bro, my dad is playing the perfect role for me to be the man that I am now. He loves me, and I can see it in the way that he shows, he expresses love differently to my mum. And I've been able to recognize how he shares his love, and I'm able to embrace it in the way that he wants to give it. I can't be there and be like, Dad, do you love me? That's not how it should be. So for me, I'm at that stage of my life now where I'm able to see things differently, where I'm able to embrace certain scenarios that's coming from a real raw place. And for me, I'm just at this place now where, bro, I don't crave anyone's love. You know, I know my mum and dad love me. I know my partner loves me, and I know in myself that I love myself, bro. So I think when you can sit in that place, fuck, you're winning, bro.
That's amazing, man. I don't think I've heard probably more than 5 people like honestly say that with a smile on their face, and like even though this is over Zoom, can just like tell through your mannerisms, the way you're acting and the way you're speaking, that that's true for you, bro. Like deep down.
Yeah, man, it's been good, and I'm just, yeah, like, bro, I'll tell you what, like, my partner, bro, she was gone for 8 days, you know, so I'm just like extra happy that she's home right now because, you know, we just went through like a little something, you know, where it was just hard in the bubble, you know, wanted to see different people but couldn't, but decided, all right, I'm going to go and see my family. So we had time apart, and that's when I really started to put those morning routines in place. I went back to the tried and trues. All right, my partner's not here. Man, I feel a little bit unworthy. I feel a little bit unloved. But instead of surrendering to that, I just went, all right, I know this is just something that we're going through, but what can I do now to make me feel good? And that's when I just started this rampage of, all right, I know I love podcasting, so I'm just going to go hard. I know I love training and eating well and working with food, so I'm just going to go hard on that. And as I started to work so hard on myself, I started just to feel amazing. And meanwhile, my fiance, she's doing the same. She's going through it. She's finding her own sense of herself and growth and learning, as well as myself. And now that we're back together, we're like, fucking boom, let's go.
Bro,
Yeah,
man, thank you for showing up like this, straight up.
Oh, both. I love speaking like big. I love talking about, you know, stories and things like that. But for me, it's all about speaking to the moment. You know, what the fuck are you going through right now? You know, how are you feeling right now? Not about all of these other things, but for me, that's a story that's just happened. And this is what I'm feeling like in the moment. So, bro, I just want to thank you for, you know, allowing me the space to express rawly, to open up, and just for allowing me to let rip, because, you know, in podcast as a host, you're just asking the questions and allowing people to speak. So for me, I've had all these guests and I'm like, I just want to fucking let it out. You know? So
Yep.
you're being able to provide that for me, bro. So yeah, just want to acknowledge you and say thanks, brother.
Oh, thank you, bro. Let's get you back to your missus. I've got a couple wrap-up questions, and then you can get back to it, man. Fireworks. Knowing everything that you've been through up until now, all the work that you're doing with the youth and the podcast, and especially like your food truck.
Yeah.
Knowing everything that you've been through, what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
Well, I think I said it, you know, there's just so much love at the moment. There's this feeling of, or I feel so guided, I feel presence of atua, of elements, of in sync, of harmonious sort of, you know, synergies that are just happening at the moment. And it's just being in that moment, because my life and the way that I have been, it's just so focused on the future. I'm a futuristic kind of guy, and what this lockdown has just provided, bro, it's just that reset. It's that slow the fuck down. It's that what are you up to? And for me, all of those things that I have been through, it's all been a preparation for this current moment. And everyone can look at it in that sense. Everything that anyone has ever been through, it's been a preparation for this current moment. And it will be for tomorrow's moment, for the next moment. We're just all in this divine plan. You know, our life is already planned out, bro. You know, we just got to use our consciousness, our ways of thinking, our in tune with our wairua, and we just got to allow things to happen. We got to surrender to whatever comes up in that moment. Bro, I'm trying to be in this space where I can sit in gratitude, and bro, I love it. I can sit in so much positivity and amazing things happening. But can you sit and feeling shit about yourself? Can you sit and being angry? Can you sit and being upset, hurt, sad? And I'm at this point now where I feel okay sitting in that mamai, in that hurt. And it pisses my fiance off, bro. It pisses her off because she just wants to get over it and, just carry on. But me, I'm like, no, let's feel this out. She's, hey, bro, she hates it, bro. She's like, oh, but that's just the kind of guy I like to feel. I'm a real feels person. I like to feel happy, feel love, but when I'm feeling down, for me, I know what it's like to bottle it up. I know what it's like to just get over it. I know what it's like to put on a shell and just allow that to just marinate until one big explosion happens. And for me, I'd rather just sit in that shit for an hour, for 2 days, well, however long it is, as long as I can feel that emotion. So if I have the space to do that, I know that I can be a better person. I know that it's going to be better for myself, for my fiance, for my family. And it's just something that I'm committed to, just to continue to learn and to go through.
That's beautiful, man. I feel like that's where suffering comes from when you're trying to run away from feeling what's coming up. Because whether you like it or not, it's that emotion's going to be in you, and unless you get that energy and motion, that emotion, and move it through the body and feel it, it's going to be stuck there until you actually experience it and let it out or express it. So that's amazing, bro. Last question, man. If there was one seed that you could plant for the collective, what would that be?
Oh, I love this question, bro, because it comes down to my legacy. My legacy is all about being one little stone that's dropped in a still lake, that just creates many ripples. And for
Goosebumps, bro.
me, that's my legacy, bro. That's all I want to do. And being able to reverse engineer that to my purpose of my life for Tupuanuku, for the Planting Seeds podcast. It's, bro, my whole journey isn't even about veganism. It's not even about food. I don't even share much things about it at all. It's all about bringing people's focus into self, because it's so easy to think about other people. It's so easy to dream without action. It's so easy for the what ifs or the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But at the end of the day, the major contribution that we can do to, if the purpose is to create health and well-being, transformative changes, to be a man of service, it really comes down to, I got to put in the work. The better that I am, the better my inner world is, and my world within my bubble is. That's my biggest contribution, bro. That's my biggest contribution. I'm not out there creating all these major movements and things like that. That's not my priority. It's just manifesting through me being me. Like, that's the punchline. Just me being me. And it's crazy for people to not even understand that. They feel like they need to be someone else. They feel like they need to do their haircut a certain way to fit in. But to me, bro, it's just about finding, at the end of the day, bro, you got to go through shit. Just fucking go through it. If you're going through shit at the moment, it's all good. It's okay. Because at the other side of that, there is going to be so much growth if you're open to it. But if you don't see growth at the end of that struggle, I can guarantee you're going to carry on going through it, because it takes understanding the pattern. It comes down to recognizing that I don't want to continue to feel like shit, And that's when you can really transform your life. And to improve the lives of others, it's just all about making yourself a better person. So that's why I'm just on this relentless journey of just doing the mahi, my bro, in that trench.
That's awesome, bro. I love that. That landed for me, and that trenches analogy will probably be the soundbite at the start too.
Yeah, let's go, bro.
Bro, to wrap up, straight up, just want to acknowledge you for making time, first of all, especially with your partner sitting there having just come back. Thank you, bro. But most of all, for going through what you've been through, for showing up, for being aware and vulnerable, and for, I guess, standing in that energy that you have, that charisma, that relatability that you have, and standing there with power, man. It's fucking beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to have seen face to face on a Zoom. And I'm just truly grateful that someone like you is doing what you're doing, especially over there in NZ.
Thank you, brother. And bro, episode number 140, whatever it is, bro, that's trench life, bro. You're doing that trench life, bro. So commend you for the hustle, for, you know, extending the invitation. I seen that you just had the bro Isaac John on, the bro Ice. So I'm pleased, bro, that you're starting to get guests that, you know, really resonating for you and are doing really well in the sort of space of brand awareness. And, you know, because the way you hold space, the way you're actually, the questions, the thought-provoking questions that you ask, and just giving that time just for someone to speak. I know for myself, bro, I've greatly and deeply appreciated being on this podcast with you, bro, and I just wish you all the success, brother. So thank you very much.
Thank you, my man. You have a good night, eh?
Cheers, bro. You too, man.